We are Group Video Games 3, and this is our collaborative video project for History 3380 in fall 2020. Some of us are looking at modern connections to ancient architecture, and some to ancient iconography. Some are looking at the video game Overwatch, and some are looking at Assassin's Creed. Together, we found that portrayals of ancient Egyptian culture abound in the latest video games. I'm Chase Hansen, and I'm doing my report on the portrayal of Set and Horus in the game Smite. So first, we can take a look at the actual portrayals of them in the game. So this is Horus. You can see he is clad in bright gold head to toe. It's very ornate looking armor. It has symbols of his authority, like the sun disk here on his waist, the Ankh here on his neck, and looks like a sun disk to me also. Um, it is a portrayal that really embellishes, in a way, his kind of kingly stature. Even his abilities in the game are named things like Resolute or Protector's Surge. It's trying to portray him as somebody who's all about protecting Ma'at and kingship, protecting the rightful rule on your team of warriors, if not in the country of Egypt. And we can contrast this to Set. Set, on the other hand, this isn't gold on him. It's a much darker color that looks like bronze or something like that to me. He's wearing a lot less armor and a lot more cloth on his body, and it's far less ornate. It looks like the clothes of a warrior, not of somebody who's trying to show off ceremonial armor. In terms of demeanor, he's stooped. He's kind of looking around suspiciously. He carries a weapon, unlike Horus. In the game, Horus, he battles by swinging his wings around. And his abilities are named things like Relentless, Skewer, and Kingslayer. He's kind of portrayed as the villain. But that isn't necessarily the truth. In reality, we have portrayals like this where the scribe is seen as actually worshipping Set. You can tell it's Set. He has the strange, almost beak-like face, the squared-off ears, and the rest of him looks kind of like Anubis. Or in the ones that I included in my project, you can see entirely Set and Horus are put on equal grounds. They're at equal height, although both are obviously less tall than the pharaoh with his tall crown on. They're shown in the same pose, they're shown with the same objects, they're shown equal in every single respect. Even though, according to the Osirian myth at least, they're mortal enemies who battled over the fate of Egypt, got up to all sorts of shenanigans in pursuit of that, etc. This is a 3D model that I found quickly on Sketchfab. On a tangent, this is very close to what we're doing at RAFMA right now, so I was kind of excited to find this for this particular statue of Horus and Seth with Ramses III at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo.
Hello, my name is Madeline Macias, and for my section of my group project, I will be looking at the video game Overwatch. More specifically, I will be comparing the mortuary temple map, Temple of Anubis, and its artifacts in Overwatch to an actual mortuary temple and its artifacts in ancient Egypt. So to start, a bit of background on the actual game Overwatch. Overwatch is a team-based, multiplayer, first-person shooter, and in the game there are different maps with different objectives to complete for your team to win. For example, this is important because Temple of Anubis, the map that I will be talking about, is a capture or control the point map depending on if you are on attacking or defending team. I bring this up because we will be talking about where the artifacts are in the map. For example, the first artifact I will be talking about is these statues of the god Anubis for Temple of Anubis. So when you are on the attacking team, and you are running to point A on the map, these are probably one of the first things and most prominent things that you see in comparison to ancient Egypt in the map. So, of course, the god Anubis is the god of death, and we see here that he has a very wolf-like appearance. And in the ancient Egyptian portrayal of him, he also has the wolf-like appearance. Overwatch uses a lot of black and gold coloring on him, while the Egyptians use a lot of teal and gold, so they add more coloring and a little bit of red here. Overall, Overwatch is pretty accurate in the wolf-like appearance, a little bit of headpiece, and a few of the clothing, but of course, since Overwatch is there for entertainment value, we do see the more futuristic, robotic look, whereas Ancient Egypt obviously sees him in a more conservative fashion without all that extra stuff. The next thing that we come to look at is sarcophagus. So this particular sarcophagus here is in point B in the map. So when you are on the attacking team, this is the second point that you will go to try and capture. So the sarcophagus here, we see the gold coloring and the blue stripes on the headpiece, which is very accurate to King Tut's sarcophagus here, which is probably one of the most famous sarcophagus in ancient Egyptian history. We, of course, see some subtle differences here, like, for example, in Overwatch, we don't see any arms on the sarcophagus, which means no crook and flail, which are being held here by King Tut's sarcophagus. Overall, I think Overwatch did a pretty good job at staying mostly accurate to ancient Egyptian art and artifacts for mortuary temples. However, because it's for entertainment purposes, we do see some modern media spin on ancient Egyptian art.
Hi, my name's Aaron, and I did my project on the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut. And I also the game that I chose was The Sims 3 World Adventure Pack that was released in 2009. So on the left, you're able to see the photograph of the actual temple in Egypt, and the temple is located in the Upper Egypt, and it was built around 1479 BCE. One of the aspects of the temple of Hatshepsut is that it was created based off the temple of Mentuhotep II and his mortuary temple, and in the location that it's at, I believe it's to the left of the temple, is where Mentuhotep II's temple is located, and you could actually, you could actually see the similarity that they have. The only main difference is that Hatshepsut actually made her temple remarkably bigger than his. And we also learned throughout our course that the reason for this was archaism, and how she depicted herself. She made her temple next to his and so similar to his to depict herself as something to legitimize her ruling and her and kind of tie in with the same ideas and the same policies that he had. So the temple is built on the side of a mountain, and it is built off some cliffs. And as you can see on the left, in the photograph, you see the mountain right behind it, and on the right is in the game. And you also are able to see the mountain that is built off. So the game Sims 3, the actual World Adventure Pack, released in 2009, and it was an addition to the game that allowed players to visit different locations around the world and explore different artifacts in different locations. And one of those was Egypt. And in Egypt, there was multiple locations that players were able to visit, including the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut. And players were actually able to explore, and they were able to collect different items and different prizes around different locations. And there was also an aspect in the game where mummies played a role, and there was actually complications in the game for players to kind of depict depict how the Egyptians would fight off tomb raiders, and how the players would have to kind of win this challenge or something along those lines in order to collect the prize for that certain location. So as I stated before, the temple was actually built on the side of a mountain and cliffs. And in the article that I used in my paper, by Samantha Shade, she actually states that there was multiple meanings for the location that they picked for the construction of the temple, and one of those was a religious aspect, and how the religious aspect was the god Hathor, and how she had control over the Western Mountains, which is why they chose to construct the temple in that location. I also believe, the game also included the statues that are seen outside of the actual temple. So on the right, we're able to see a photograph of the temple and the statues that are on the outside, and on the left, we're able to see in the video game how they depict the temple, and how they depict the statues that are actually outside. They as well depict the different 3 levels, or the different levels to the temple, and how they are connected through these ramps. And the only aspect that I was able to find that they didn't incorporate, that I would have loved to see them incorporate, and it would have gave them like more of a actual historical aspect to it, was they did not depict the mortuary temple of Mentuhotep II next to it. And I do believe that would have added a aspect of historical importance. But other than that, I think they did a great job overall in depicting the temple, and how they also included minor aspects that I do believe help them with the players' interaction and understanding a little bit more of the Egyptian architect and the culture. And I do also like how they included different locations in Egypt that the players are actually able to explore. For example, another location that was added into the game was they were able to explore a location where the Sphinx was, and this location, and other tombs that they were able to go inside and see artifacts. Some had artifacts inside of them that they were able to take a look at. But yeah, overall, I think they did a good job in incorporating culture and architecture from Egypt into the game, and I think the video game did a good job in creating good locations for them to visit that also still had some historical aspect to it. And yeah, this is my project. Thank you.
For my individual project, I compared the ancient use of the Wadjet to the use of it in a video game. Here I have an example of a Wadjet amulet which portrays 2 uraeus, a lion, and wings. Also known as the Eye of Horus, it represents the god Horus and is a symbolization of health and rebirth. This amulet would have protected the wearer either in life or on their journey to the afterlife. In comparison, I have provided the use of the Wadjet in the game Overwatch. Farah's Eye of Horus tattoo is portrayed around her eye and is a symbol of her role as a protector. I personally believe this piece holds cultural significance because the designer's usage of the Eye of Horus wasn't a meaningless aesthetic mark, but as a symbol that holds the same meaning as its ancient usage.
Hello, my name is Jose Ibarra. I am going to talk about my group project, specifically in rebuilding ancient Egypt through contemporary video games. My video game I chose was Assassin's Creed Origins. So, Assassin's Creed Origins is an action-adventure video game that is developed by Ubisoft. It was the 10th major series of an Assassin's Creed game. It was released worldwide on October 27, 2017. I specifically wanted to talk about the gods and dynasty rules, specifically involved in this game. The reason I chose this game specifically was because we had to relate something to Egypt and Egyptian history, and this game was literally taking place in ancient, mysterious Egypt. It has many explorations you could do, great pyramids, hidden tombs across the country of Egypt. It has a lot of encounters related to Egypt, and to me, this was the one that caught my eye the most out of all other video games. Pharaohs, the male rulers, and Egypt's vast kingdoms that were specifically thought a reincarnation for Horus, a falcon-headed god, was a hidden Easter egg, which is a hidden part in the game that you gotta do to find out that he really does come out of the video game, Horus. And it was to me one of the coolest things because I never thought that it was going to be somewhat accurate, and it actually was very accurate. So they also had the Temple of Edfu in the game. It looked honestly almost identical as the real life one in Upper Egypt and Nile, which to me was also very interesting. So now that we know the history of the Egyptians worshipped during the times, we know that these gods, I just wanted to know what the gods were doing in the video game. It was just very interesting to me. And to think Assassin's Creed, thinking about how they made a game related to all this was very interesting. It inhabited people's actions and behavior throughout the game. It was a strong bond between unique power, structure, dealing with powerful pharaohs. And Assassin's Creed is all about action-packed adventures and powerful contacts and just lots of fun. And I thought it was very cool that they made a game where you could learn your history and enjoy the game and just find awesomeness between the Egypt's history. And I thought this game was a great game, and I thought it was perfect for the relations between ancient Egypt and this game they made. And that's about it. I appreciate you. Thank you for hearing my project, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Christopher Saporito, and for my Egyptian art history final research project, I decided to do mine on the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, before I get into specifically what I did for my project, I first wanted to give some background information on the pyramid itself. So to start, this was the first built pyramid of 3 Giza pyramids, the others being Khafre's pyramid and Menkare's pyramid. It took about 20 years to complete and was totally finished by 2560 BC. Over 2 million massive limestone blocks were used in its construction, and it has been said that roughly 6,000 to 10,000 workers worked on the pyramid. It is the tallest pyramid in the world today, and it is only one of the 7 wonders still standing to this day. So, for my project itself, I decided to compare the Assassin's Creed Origins Great Pyramid of Giza to the original. Assassin's Creed Origins is an action-adventure game set in ancient Egypt during the Ptolemaic era, and the game was released October 27, 2017. So for my project, I decided to compare the interior and the exterior of the Assassin's Creed Origins Great Pyramid of Giza to the original. For the interior, originally I was going to take a picture of the various rooms, such as the King's Chamber, Queen's Chamber, Grand Gallery, in Assassin's Creed Origins, but that would have been simply way too many pictures on the page. So instead, I actually found this quest item that shows kind of like a sketch of the interior, and I basically just used this to compare the rooms in the pyramid. For the exterior, I basically decided to go with materials, and I compared the materials on the pyramid, like this white Tira limestone, which used to actually be on the original before it was taken off. and basically just the overall appearance, how they look side by side, and how accurately Assassin's Creed Origins depicted the Great Pyramid. Anyways, that's what I did for my project. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alex, and I'm going to be presenting my part of the group project that we had, where we had to take ancient Egyptian art or artifacts or any kind of monuments and pretty much compare and contrast them to modern day use. In our case, we chose video games as our subject to look over. So in my case, I picked the Pyramid of Djoser and the Assassin's Creed Origins video game, which was released on October of 2017, where they pretty much reconstructed pretty much all of Egypt, well, at least its main parts and main monuments and stuff like that. So in Pyramid of Djoser, I wanted to look over the actual pyramid itself, what the complex consisted of, like the courtyards or what would have been in the courtyards, and what I went over in my research and what I found and what was accurate and what was not accurate. So here's side-by-side comparison of kind of what the best picture I was able to find of the Pyramid of Djoser in real life, and then here's a picture I found that best viewed the complex in its entirety of the video game. So here on the right is the picture that I use for the overview of the Pyramid of Djoser in Assassin's Creed Origins. Another picture here and our view, as well as the underground complex for the video game. Pretty much they did a representation of the outer as well as the inner of the complex. Here's another depiction of the video game, went ahead and did a bust of Djoser. Not that I did not find anything that was that there was a bust found or there was a bust that was supposed to be inside the complex or outside the complex in which depicted Djoser. But the video game went ahead and created a bust of Djoser, which has some implementation of the culture, of the king culture, where it does have that headdress as well as that beard here, and then whether that be a upper or lower crown um, on top of the king's head. At the bottom here, I went ahead and did my analysis where I did take 4 sources in which I could drive my introduction here of the actual complex and what the complex really consisted of, um, as well as the accuracy and what was not accurate of the video game depiction compared to the real life. And then below here is pretty much the culture aspect. Here I did the introduction, like I said, of the piece. And then I went ahead and pretty much provided what I thought were accurate. In this case, pretty much the Pyramid of Djoser in the video game was a complex, and they tried doing their best to reconstruct the complex and the pyramid being at its center. As well as certain buildings, as here's what I use Friedman, where pretty much there was a great courtyard on the south side and the Hebsep court, and then obviously rows of provincial shrines. There was a lot of dummy buildings that were around. It was a rectangle stone enclosed surrounding. Pretty much the complex was rectangular. And as well as obviously it was stone structure. And then I went ahead and as well said, did a great depiction on the layering of the actual pyramid, as well as there also was a underground complex and how they depicted the underground complex. And then the things that weren't inaccurate, as well as the underground complex was accurate. It wasn't necessarily fully accurate in the way it is a video game, so they do have to appeal to an audience, where they have to make the game appealing to the gamer itself. So they didn't go necessarily the full route to fully depict it the way it should have been, but they did go ahead and depict that there was an underground complex, as well as there was no statue of Djoser that I found in Hawass, an analysis of the statue of Djoser, but there was a bust of Dozier, which I showed up here. And I feel like that's what they tried going, but they didn't use it accurately. Since it does not look like the statue of Dozier, it's pretty much a bust, not an actual statue, and it was not in where it was possibly put. And here in Hawass, the possible placement was in the Hebseb core. Once looking over, I couldn't find anything in the Hebseb core. And the closest thing was probably this, another inaccuracy that was there. But other than that, I mean, they did a great job as putting all the structure and the complex very accurate. But then again, it is a video game where they're trying to appeal to an audience and try to make it as enjoyable as it could be. So that's why I feel they did not do it entirely, as well as they feel like they can't really go in precise detail. And then I went into the culture aspect of how they followed the culture and how the importance of the culture was. They added certain, like I said, the headdress of the bust, the culture significance in some of the courts in the complex. And that's what I pretty much found in my research. And that's what I presented in the site here. Some images that show the detail of both the real life and as well as the video game aspect, brief description. And then again, below would be my full analysis review of the inaccuracies and inaccuracies of the video game, and then my sources below. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chandler Wade, and today I will be presenting my project is on the Great Sphinx, and I'm comparing it to Assassin's Creed Origins, based in Egypt. Some basic information. The Sphinx is a colossal limestone statue carved from one piece of limestone, believe it or not. A bunch of workers have uncovered it when removing sand, trying to make a horseshoe-shaped quarry, and they found the giant block of limestone just sitting in the middle of it. It is located in Giza in Egypt. It dates from King Khafre, 2575 to 2465 BCE. It is 240 feet long, 66 feet high, and it took about 100 people 3 years to build. It is pretty much essentially what the Sphinx is it has the body of a lion, and the Egyptians used that. It was to show like how brave he was, how cunning he was. And it has the head of a human to represent the king and how he's his genius, you know. Some more information. In ancient Egypt, the Sphinx was a spiritual guardian. It protected the Great Pyramids. Many worshipped it as Hor-em-Akhet, or Horus of the Horizon. The Sphinx came from Greek culture and was later adopted into Egyptian culture. And the Egyptians, they pretty much used the Sphinx in many like temples and stuff like that, like the one at Luxor Temple, the 2-mile walk with all just Sphinx, lined with Sphinx. And between the paws of the Sphinx, there's a stela of it is King Tutmosis IV. And it was pretty much just like a story of a dream that he had when he fell asleep under the Sphinx's head, and everything was buried in sand up to the head. It just pretty much said that the gods came to him in this dream, and that if he were to restore the Sphinx, that he would become the next king of Egypt. So he cleared the sand away, repainted it, and then he became the next king. In Assassin's Creed Origins, there is kind of a mission that you can complete, or side mission that you can complete to receive some armor for your character. It's called Align the Stars, and it's a side mission. You go into the rear entrance of the Sphinx, and there is a map room that you have to find, and the map room has pretty much a small map of Egypt, and it shows locations of where there are rock formations that mimic the constellations up in the sky. Once you see that map, you have to go out and you have to complete, like, pretty much just go to the rock formations and press interact with the rock formations. And once you complete that, you go back to the back entrance of the Sphinx. You go back to the map room. You can hit interact, and then a room will pop up. And you go into that room. You slide down into some tunnels, and after a while, you come back to where you can receive the legendary Isu armor, and that's it.
This was the collaborative video project for Group VG3. We looked at Set and Horus in Smite, the Temple of Anubis in Overwatch, the Mortuary Temple of Hatshepsut in The Sims, the Wedjat and other symbols in the character Pharah of Overwatch, and the pyramids of Khufu and Djoser and the Great Sphinx in Assassin's Creed Origins. We found a startling degree of fidelity reproduced in today's video games. You might have expected something like the kitschy horror movies of yesterday with toilet paper mummies and haunted tombs, but instead the video game makers of today go very far to introduce the actual archaeology on ancient Egypt into the culture of today. We see bright and colorful representations of ancient Egypt at its height, portrayed in ways that honor its millennia-old culture. And as a group, we expect to see ancient Egyptian culture get portrayed even more faithfully in the future.